Chewie here tells me you're looking for passage to the Alderaan system.
Yes, indeed. If it's a fast ship.
Fast ship? You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's the ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
All right, welcome everybody to a new episode of the Monthly Movie Dispatch. This is going to be our May episode of 2018, going over some of the movies that came out this summer and some other indies that we've seen. So let's first talk about who's recording this episode. We've got Brandon Bolby in New York City.
Hey, guys.
And Derek Deal in Seattle.
That's me.
And I'm Nick Moffat, so let's get going. First of all, Brandon, what's going on? How has your month of May been going with movies?
So good. I've been seeing so many movies, but I'm a little bit out of control, and I think I need to slow down and calm down after this.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen, like 9 or 10 movies that came out in 2018 just this month?
I've seen 13 movies that have came out
this month.
Well, no, sorry. Paddington was earlier this year.
But still, like, that was a 2018 movie that
Right, yeah.
you saw this month.
Yeah, I've seen, like, a movie every other day, and almost all of them have been movies from 2018.
Gosh, well, you've really shown me up. I mean, I've been watching almost a movie every day, but just a lot of older movies. I must have watched 8 movies that came out in the 70s. In fact, real quick, I watched 2 movies that came out in the 70s that took place in San Francisco, directed by Don Siegel, starring Clint Eastwood.
Whoa.
Can you name either of them?
None.
Dirty Harry.
Right.
And... no, that's it.
Escape from Alcatraz is the other one.
Oh.
But
I've seen that movie.
Which was better?
Yeah. Oh, definitely Dirty Harry. Like, I also watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I grew up with Clint Eastwood as an old man always. And after watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Dirty Harry in the same month, I realized just really how pure, amazing Clint Eastwood is. He's just one of the coolest people that has ever lived, and yeah, like just Dirty Harry absolutely stood up and. It was amazing and violent and awesome, and The Good, and the Bad, and the Ugly was one of the best Westerns I've ever seen.
Can't wait to watch Once Upon a Time in America with you.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. We gotta watch that next time you come and visit.
Is that a Clint Eastwood movie or just a Sergio Leone movie?
Sergio Leone.
I see.
Yeah, that one takes place in New York City. Takes place in the 40s or something?
Yeah, it takes place like 30s, 40s, 50s. This huge 4-hour epic movie. I literally just heard about it, and I haven't met anyone who's ever seen it. And so I'm super hyped about finally checking out this movie.
I want to watch it.
Well, maybe we'll invite you. We'll see. Well, speaking of big throwbacks, I continued my Tarkovsky run and saw a screening of Stalker down here in West Village.
You actually saw it in the theater?
Yeah, I saw it from 9 p.m. to midnight on a Sunday. There were so many NYU students in there. The theater was packed. I thought I was going to be the only one there.
Wow.
The movie was it was really fun seeing it with that crowd and being in a theater. I think that's one of the first times I've gone and seen a super old movie in a indie cinema, and it was actually really cool. I want to try to do that more often. I know it's something you've been doing.
Yeah, I definitely have seen a few this year. It's really fun seeing old movies in the theater. I actually just got Stalker from the library, so hopefully I'll be watching it next week or so.
Enjoy. Good luck.
Good luck.
Godspeed.
So, Derek, what's going on with you? How's your life?
It's going okay. I think I'm on a kind of a slow stride watching movies. Just been seeing kind of the big blockbusters that have been coming out. But even that, I feel like I've been going to the theater every week. But
yeah, and you've been going strong before this too, so you're still way ahead of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up Avengers Infinity War again because after last episode, I was the most down on it, and I couldn't tell if I was kind of being worked in that it's not a feel-good movie, and I didn't feel good about it. So I didn't know if that was kind of part of the point. And I had a bunch of other complaints, but, after talking to you guys, I had kind of a sneaking suspicion that I would like it more after the second viewing. So I kind of wanted to bring it back up and tell you guys that I saw it again. And just as I suspected, that is what happened. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more. I think that for me, the movie, like, so much happened in it, and it was just kind of an overwhelming experience with all of the characters doing so much and having the movie move so quickly that it was kind of hard for me to take in everything that was happening. I just felt that a lot of it was surface level, and we didn't really get a lot of the character moments, and the action was just okay. But I mean, as it turns out, like, I after the second viewing and after knowing where the movie goes, I was able to really just sit back and just kind of enjoy it. And I feel like there were a lot of great character moments, a lot of really fun interactions between characters. And, Thor was probably my favorite. I felt like he was on his own sort of solo movie the whole time. And there was a lot of great Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man moments. And I do think that part of it is that it's not supposed to be a feel-good movie. So it being a downer, I was more okay with. But man, it was also like a lot funnier the second time than I remember seeing the first time. Like the first time, I hardly thought it was funny at all. I was just like, man, this movie is just like sad. Just the way it starts and the way it ends. Man, this is a whole bummer of a movie. But I mean, it still is a bummer. But there was also a lot of hilarious moments that I've been quoting all month.
It was a lot more casually funny than I think even their last two Captain America movies. Even on those ones, I felt like, especially Civil War, I felt like the humor was kind of shoehorned in. And while it might have like made you smile, like it was kind of, I don't know, some of it was like, it's just dumb. It didn't really make any sense. But in Infinity War, it actually all felt really like natural humor. And I think it's just because we got a lot more character interactions that we haven't had in the other films.
Right. And I feel like it was actually really well paced. I actually think that, even though they had 20 characters that they were all trying to have their moments with, I feel like they actually balanced it really well. And yeah, the movie moves pretty quick, but it kind of balances moving quick and giving a fair amount of time to each character. And yes, some characters get the short straw, but maybe in the next movie they'll get more time. So
yeah, I think like this film's greatest feat might have been how freaking good it is, considering its scope and considering they made it from like script to theaters in 2 years. Like, it's this massive freaking movie. It seems like it would be so hard to put together and so hard to make it work in any way. And it actually works really well. And they had like a faster turnaround than I think they had between their last two movies. Is crazy to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that back up. I initially gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, and I moved it up to a 4. So I definitely liked it more the second time. So with that, we're going to go into some of our shorter reviews. Brandon, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so a movie I saw and really liked was Tully. This is a film directed by Jason Reitman. He's done in the past like Juno, Up in the Air, and Young Adult. He does a lot of these pregnant and raising children storylines that always do a good mixture of comedy and some really serious drama. I thought this movie was incredible. More so the first half than the second half. I wasn't on board with everything that went on towards the climax, but like with how much they got right in this movie and the perspective they were able to take that really isn't shown in theaters. I mean, this movie goes deep into the first months of raising a child and just like how hard it is on everyone involved and how much work and effort. Seeing that like on screen and the way they're able to present it, like there's this moment in the movie where they do a good like 2-minute montage, and the style and editing and the I don't want to say brutality, but the what this
brutality
baby
of pregnancy and babies
on their sleeping schedule and lives is so crazy to watch. Like I literally was just like jaw dropped at like the talent that was in this movie. So yeah, that's Tully. It was really great.
Yeah, this was a movie that you really, really recommended that both me and Derek see because both of our wives are pregnant, but neither of us saw. So
Yeah, so I actually think it maybe will work out better because if you saw it now, it would be more of like a horror story for you guys, like something that like maybe you'd make you dread some stuff more. But I think when it comes out like on streaming and you're in like 2 months, right when you guys are right in it, it'll just be more of like a jaw-dropping, relatable experience.
Yeah.
And so I think it might work better like turning it on a few months into having a kid
Yeah.
when it comes out. I give this movie 4 stars. Maybe like a upper 4 stars, like a 4.25, something around there.
but not quite 4.5 yet, though.
Yeah, a high 4 stars.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So that's Tully. That is not in theaters anymore, but yeah, that was the movie Tully. So Derek, what about you?
I watched this movie called Cargo. It's streaming on Netflix, and it's a zombie movie starring Martin Freeman. I think this is kind of what zombie movies need to be for now on, just because we've seen so many. I mean, it's about zombies, but they're kind of like a background type thing that's happening, more like a frame to put the world in. But it takes place in Australia, and it's pretty much just about Martin Freeman trying to save his daughter out in the Australia wilderness with the help of some of the local natives that live out there. It was just really well done. It was really creative. They take like the whole zombie outbreak in a new direction. They play with like what zombies could be. And I don't know, it's so fresh and like in such a, like it's just from a different perspective than we've really seen before. So, and Martin Freeman's really good in everything he's in. So I gave it 4 stars too.
Cool. So that's Cargo, and it's available on Netflix right now. Brandon, what's your next movie?
The next movie is Unsane. This is a Steven Soderbergh movie. I think it came out several months ago, but this is him doing a low-budget thriller. He made this movie for like $1.5 million. He notoriously filmed the whole thing on an iPhone, kind of like Tangerine. Definitely looks it, maybe even more so than Tangerine. There's some like very digitally looking shots all throughout it, but it's just like amazing seeing him get kind of like down and dirty with some indie filmmaking because he's such a good director and has such good pace to him. One thing I liked about this movie is in its concept of this woman getting like locked in an insane asylum when she's not supposed to be there, is like the believability of like, why doesn't she just walk out? Like how come she can't just like get out of this building and be saved? Like this is a ridiculous situation. They're trying to put her in the real world, but they do a really good job at coming up with reasons why she's not able to do that and why she's not able to protect herself. And it was interesting, like actually how believable they made this movie. I'd say it's like a great indie Blumhouse type thriller, even though I don't think they produced it, but it's kind of in that vein, and you guys should see it. Horror movie month in October. Yeah, I gave this movie 3.5 stars. I liked it.
Yeah, I like Steven Soderbergh a lot, so I'm pretty excited about this one. It's cool having him back.
Do you guys know if there's any truth to the rumor that he is secretly his own DP on all his films?
Never heard of this.
I've heard of this rumor that he like puts a different name on every movie, but it's not actually anyone.
I mean,
It's him.
I have no idea. I've never even heard that rumor before, but I wouldn't be surprised because he's a really creative guy. He's been making movies. He was in the first wave of like indie directors. You know, the Sex, Lies, and Videotape came out in like, you know, the late 80s, and that was part of like that rebirth of indie filmmaking. And he's been able to do like major blockbusters and small indies in that time, going back and forth. And I mean, he's a really creative dude. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. We should do more research into that.
Agreed.
Anyway, that movie is Unsane. It is going to be available on Blu-ray and DVD on June 6th and streaming around that time too. I watched a movie on Netflix called Anon. It was directed by Andrew Niccol, who also did a few other well-known sci-fi movies like Gattaca. I think Gattaca is kind of a modern sci-fi classic. I mean, it's not modern; it came out in the '90s, but it's like
So good.
Totally.
yeah, people think of Gattaca as that's one of those great sci-fi movies, and so just an Andrew Niccol movie just popping up on Netflix, I was pretty interested in it. I don't watch Black Mirror, but I kind of feel like this would be an extended episode of Black Mirror. They used some really cool stylistic things that made it seem like a video game. Like they had things popping up on the screen as if you could access things, kind of like Minority Report, like things would kind of just pop up. And I mean, the concept itself is kind of like Minority Report, except it's not preventing murders, but it's solving murders. But I don't know, I thought the movie was just okay. I thought the concept was pretty strong, but there were parts of it where some of the worst acting I've ever seen, and the concept kind of lost track of itself as it went along. I mean, the setup was really fun and interesting, but the movie kind of just became just kind of average. And then I knocked it down a star because of how some parts were just bad. So, I mean, I gave this movie 2 stars, but if you're into sci-fi, it might be worthwhile to check out. Anyway, that's Anon. It's available on streaming for Netflix right now. Brandon, what's your next movie?
Next movie is Revenge. This is a super stylized indie bloodbath revenge film, sexploitation revenge film. It's pretty brutal, but it does a total B-movie fun job with it. I would recommend not even watching the trailer because the main catalyst of the film that happens a third of the way through is something that would be amazing to be surprised with. So just give it a shot. I think it's online for streaming already. And if you want to just have a fun, bloody ride, check this movie out. I'm also just noticing it has 91% on Rotten Tomato. I know you guys hate me bringing it up, but this is a weird movie to have 91% on. But good for it. It's really fun.
Cool. So that is Revenge. That's available for streaming right now. The next movie we wanted to bring up was called First Reformed. It's a movie starring Ethan Hawke, and it's directed and written by Paul Schrader, who also wrote a bunch of he's been writing and directing movies since the 70s. He wrote Taxi Driver and a bunch of other ones. And I mean, to be honest, I'm not that familiar with his filmography. And this movie's just been getting great buzz. I think Brandon saw it before I did, but I saw it at the Seattle International Film Festival, and I actually almost didn't get in. The line was around the whole building, and I was one of the only people who were in the standby line that was actually able to get in. And,
nice.
I don't really want to give too much away about this, but Brandon, what do you think? Help me out here.
I freaking loved this movie. I thought it was stylistically genius. Every kind of aspect of it, the way it was shot, the aspect ratio, all the actors' performances were kind of awkwardly close to the camera and personal and unique. And I really got into this. It's a pretty small film. It takes place in only a few locations. And it's really psychological. Ethan Hawke's character kind of goes down the deep end throughout the course of this movie pretty slowly, like a lot of other Paul Schrader films. When I saw this movie, it was actually at an open Q&A where the director, Paul Schrader, showed up afterwards, and people got to ask him questions directly for a half hour after the film. So that was pretty special. But to me, this is probably going to be one of the best movies of the year, and I thought it was amazing.
So you definitely liked this movie more than I did. I definitely got a lot out of it. There's a lot of ideas in this movie. There's all sorts of existential crisis elements that the characters are going through, and they're struggling with what they believe in. He's a reverend, and I don't want to say that he's questioning his faith, but he's more questioning his place in the world and the other humans' place in the world, how they're affecting God's world. There's also, I'm totally with you on the style. There's so much style in that movie. There's a few shots that are really going to stick with me. I mean, he's an alcoholic. He just keeps drinking throughout the movie. There's a scene where he pours whiskey into his bowl of cereal, which is played for laughs. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
later on, he's drinking whiskey again, but he pours like a bunch of Pepto-Bismol into the glass, and before he drinks it, it like has this close-up of the glass, and the Pepto-Bismol isn't mixing very well with the whiskey. It kind of looks like a big pink tumor inside the rest of the liquid, and it's like this close-up of it, and it's such
kind of
a
David
great
Lynch-esque.
shot. Yeah, it was like such a good shot. I mean, I'm not gonna give away the ending, but the ending is very trippy and up for debate on what happens. So, I mean, there's a lot of style and a lot to like about this movie. I personally didn't buy into some of the character choices. There were moments where, like, where the movie goes, I didn't really believe that the characters would go that way. So, I mean, I definitely recommend it because I think that it's a worthwhile movie to see. I just think that it kind of lost track of some believability elements for me in place of ideas. Like, I think the movie kind of chooses to have style and ideas over what the characters might, really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gave this movie 3.5 stars.
And I gave it 4.5 stars.
Okay. So that's First Reformed, and I'm pretty sure it's going to get a wide release. Both me and Brandon saw it in limited release. I'm pretty sure it's getting a wide release later this summer. Brandon, what's your next movie?
Next movie is The Writer. I don't really know much about the crew of this film, but I saw a trailer for it and saw that it was getting really great reviews, so I decided to check it out. And this is definitely the better of the two horse movies that came out on the same week. So I definitely recommend The Writer over Lean on Pete. So yeah, the writer's super unique. They both deal with a lot of the same concepts, but it's about this boy who trains horses and rides in the rodeo bucking horses, and the movie starts with him waking up at the hospital after being stepped in the head, having this giant scar and not being able to ride anymore. So he lives in like severe poverty. There's nothing else really to do in his life, and it's about him trying to decide what to do next. And it's really beautiful. I guess some really unique thing about how they shot this film, like the main character of this movie actually went through that in his life, and they shot it not too long after a horse actually stepped on his head and he couldn't ride anymore. And so the director did this weird hybrid of like wrote this movie while it was still occurring in reality, and decided to step in and shoot the main character along with other people in the town that were actual, not really actors, just people who were living in the community.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
So I give this movie a high 4 stars as well. Like, I know it could easily slide between 4.5 and 4. But yeah, I give it 4 for now.
Okay, cool. So that was The Writer, and that's probably still in some theaters right now. Brandon, what's your next movie?
My next movie is Let the Sunshine In. This is a French film that was on the Sight and Sound list for 2017, but it finally got its release here in the States. So I was pretty excited to finally check it out. It's a pretty entertaining movie. It wasn't as serious as I thought it was going to be, but it's a really unique perspective about somebody. Everyone knows those people that they're constantly in different relationships, but there's never downtime in between them, and each relationship is just as serious as the last. It's about one of those people that just always has to have that person around them, and she's kind of like a love addict. The movie is super subtle. It'll show scenes, and then it won't be for another 15 or 20 minutes to where they'll call back and you'll realize what you were watching before. And it just kind of moves through these relationships in a really natural and real way, to even the point where it's not giving you any information about them. And it kind of just paints this tapestry of someone who is a complete love addict and needs help. And so I recommend this.
Addicted to Love, huh?
Yeah, I give this movie 4 stars.
Yeah, so that's Let the Sunshine In. It's probably playing at some select theaters right now. Otherwise, watch it for when it comes out on streaming. So now we're going to move on to our featured reviews for the episode. The first being Deadpool 2, starring Ryan Reynolds, returning as Deadpool. I'm just going to read the plot summary real quick. wisecracking mercenary Deadpool battles the evil and powerful Cable and other bad guys to save a boy's life. This movie was directed by David Leitch. He also did John Wick and Atomic Blonde, stars Ryan Reynolds and Josh Brolin, TJ Miller, a few other people. So, Derek, do you want to kick us off with your initial thoughts about Deadpool 2?
Does it actually say the evil and powerful Cable?
It does in this review.
Such a strange description of that character.
He's
yeah.
that evil, yeah. It's kind of, I feel like maybe I should check my other stuff. I'll check, that was Letterboxd. Let me see if it says that on
What if they just
IMDb.
saw Josh Brolin and thought he was playing Thanos?
Right.
That's funny.
Okay, this one is a little bit differently. This one says, foul-mouthed mutant mercenary Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, brings together a team of fellow mutant rogues to protect a young boy with supernatural abilities from the brutal, time-traveling cyborg Cable.
Much better.
That sounds better.
That makes a little more sense, yeah.
Yay.
I liked it overall. I didn't think it was as good as the first one, but I think what David Leitch brought to it was his ability to make amazing action scenes. And so this movie was just full of really awesome action scenes, and it still had that same humor that the first one had. I think it lacked the drama, and I don't know, part of what I loved so much about the first one was that the relationship between Wade Wilson and I can't think of the girl's name, but his girlfriend was just it was actually really sweet and really charming, and I think in this one they just missed it. I don't know if it was just they were more focused. I mean, David Leitch is more of an action director, so maybe he just, he doesn't quite have the chops to handle the making that dramatic stuff work within this just ridiculous comedy. But I don't know. That was probably my least favorite thing about it, was them not being able to pull that together, because that was what I liked about the first one so much. Other than that, I think I wasn't a super big fan of Josh Brolin as Cable. The character just, I mean, he was fine, but it wasn't as exciting as I was hoping it would have been. I thought he himself was kind of forgettable, honestly. Like, for a co-star, he was still very overshadowed by the other characters.
Yeah, for a movie that had such good action, Josh Brolin was the least interesting action part of the movie, and just he kind of had a strong arm, and they didn't make that work very well in those fight scenes. I kind of visioned he would be jumping back and forth through time and fucking with Deadpool on a minute-to-minute basis and going back and forth, and they'd actually utilize his interesting power aspects.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember almost anything that he did in the movie. Such an unmemorable character.
Yeah, he had a big gun and an arm. The gun could magnetize itself to his back, which was kind of cool, but I mean, that was what it did. It went to his back. So,
yeah.
Brandon, what about you? What did you think about Deadpool 2?
I really enjoyed this movie. I know I gave it a 4, maybe it should be a 3.5, but I just think it's so cool to see an action movie that actually has amazing action in it. It seems like such a no-brainer that these big blockbusters should be hiring the best stunt coordinators and choreographers to set up these elaborate scenes and to place really fun, interesting choreography throughout them. And you finally get it with Deadpool 2. There are some amazing fight scenes that are really cleverly put together, and where the characters, besides Josh Brolin, what we just said, but where a lot of the other characters are using their powers in really personal and interesting ways. We can go in details, with the girl that's super lucky. That was one of the best executions of a superhero power I've ever seen in a movie. And they did a good job with that in the first one, but even more so in this one too. It's awesome seeing a blockbuster with such good fighting. And I thought it was hilarious. I think this movie had even higher highs than the first one did as far as its comedy, and went for and succeeded at even bigger jokes.
I'd agree.
And I really respect the movie for that.
It kind of sounds like I like the movie the least out of the three of us, which is, again, surprising because I typically like comic book movies, more than Brandon at least. But I thought it was all right. I gave it 3 stars overall. I felt like it was a very disjointed movie. I kind of felt like they really tried for the emotional stuff, but then they also, Deadpool's a very hilarious, fourth wall breaking character, and I just felt like this movie, those two things didn't connect in this movie. The emotional beats, they kind of went in different direction from where the first one was at. The first one was all about his relationship, his love interest, and this one was more about him and this boy. But I didn't really feel that. I didn't really get why. I mean, I understood on an intellectual level why he was trying to save the boy, but I didn't really feel like there was a connection between the two of them. And it felt like every time the movie tried to do an emotional thing, it was kind of undercut by a joke, and a lot of the jokes were hilarious, but it didn't get over the fact for me that the movie was was disjointed, kind of inconsequential.
A big thing in the disjointedness is I still can't figure out how the main catalyst for him with his girlfriend relates to the rest of the movie and how he got to the boy. Like, it's kind of just this weird string of events that happens throughout the first third of the movie that's so unrelated.
Doesn't
and
relate.
then he winds up in the situation he's in the second half of the movie.
He ends up joining the X-Men because of a series of events. And
but it's like
he's a trainee of the X-Men.
4 weird events of how he gets there.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the gang at the beginning.
Right. I will say one thing I really did like about it was their use of the X-Men, though. You alluded to it earlier about how they had other mutants and their powers done in really interesting ways. And I think, they had other mutants and their powers done well, but also just on a character level, they had some really well-realized characters. Like Colossus, who was in the first one, but he's a fully realized character. And I mean, he's not an interesting enough character where you want a full Colossus movie, but he was perfect as a supporting character. Same with, Domino was amazing. I feel like Juggernaut shows up, and man, Juggernaut was really great too. And also, by the way, I'm pretty sure Ryan Reynolds was doing the voice of Juggernaut.
Yeah, he did.
Which is kind of a throwback to like that movie that I loved so much, The Voices, where he's the cat and the dog. So I mean, Ryan Reynolds is amazing.
I mean, he's still like the best part of everything going on with this franchise, I think, is Ryan Reynolds. Like, one thing that I think is just really cool about what they're doing with it is he's literally he's a credited writer on both films, and the entire reason this movie got made, and he's doing all this other stuff for it. I think his sense of humor and his pride in this franchise is that's the through line between the first and the second movie to me.
Right.
He is very much still you get that same Deadpool, that same Wade Wilson that we got in the first one in this one. So all that humor still lands well, and he's still quick-witted and just going.
Right.
But that was also my biggest problem with the movie was how disjointed it was. It wasn't just it didn't just affect the movie, but it was also just really disappointing because they handled this so well in the first one.
Well, so I mean, you keep talking about how I'm totally with you. Ryan Reynolds, he's what brings this movie and connects it completely. But I feel like he is just so much better at comedy. All the comedy stuff landed for me. And I know we've talked about it off air, but the first one did set up that Deadpool is emotional and can be an emotional story. But I don't know. I feel like Deadpool would be fine. The franchise would be fine if they made Deadpool movies that weren't emotional. It just kind of felt like he was a little too emo in this movie, and they gave him reasons to be emo. He wasn't just like Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3, but it was it was so emotional, and it didn't really land. I think Deadpool would work as a movie if it was mostly just jokes and cool action. I don't think we really need it to be like some sort of like really emotionally charged film.
I think you're right, but like personally I think it's too late for that. Like they've established this other character and a relationship, and you either just completely get rid of it, and I mean maybe Deadpool 3 is the time to do that since they handled it so poorly in this one. But I don't know, for me, like that's what brought Deadpool 1 from like a really good Deadpool movie to making it into my top 10 list of that year. Like the sex montage and everything in the first movie, like that's one of the sweetest, most heartwarming things.
Right.
And yet it's still played straight for laughs. It's still all comedy. And it like works really well in this like raunchy comic book like comedy. I don't know. For me, that's what elevated that movie even that much more.
You feel like there's a genuine connection between them. Like that montage is so effective because you feel like they really do belong together and there's a genuine connection. But I guess I'm just saying, like, I mean, second movie is done, whatever, they made it the way they did, but I'm talking about going forward. I feel like he can still have relationships, he can still have her, and then just have some sort of X-Men adventure, just have some sort of like, kick-ass, like, oh, there's a bad guy here. I mean, these movies are fairly conventional. Once you strip away the hard violence and the humor and the fourth wall breaking stuff, the plot is pretty conventional.
I think I mostly agree with what you're saying, Nick, and I hope going forward they're able to realize that. I'm personally really excited for the team they have together. Like you said, they were with such little screen time, they were able to make so many of the supporting characters just interesting and fun to watch. And now that it ended in a typical we have the team together way, and now we're going to go on and kick some more ass with bad guys, I'm like pretty excited if this director helms the third one and is able to take that team to some great action scenes going forward. So yeah, I'm excited for a third one is all I'm saying.
Far out.
So there's just one like super clever thing I wanted to highlight that made my jaw drop because I've never seen it before. It was in like towards the opening when he's kicking a bunch of ass and like butchering a ton of different gangs. There's this shot where it's in slow motion, and it's a really long take of it tracking backwards, and then you quickly realize that it's only the guy running in the like foreground that's in slow motion, and all the chaos going on in the background is in real time, all in the same cut. Do you guys remember that shot?
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I know exactly the shot you're talking about. I didn't notice that everything was in fast motion.
It was in
regular.
It was in two different speeds, like the single shot that goes on for like a minute straight. It's like crazy clever.
Yeah. Well, what probably the scene that really made me like this movie so much was the skydiving scene. Like if that was all I got from this movie, I'd be really happy.
Yes.
'Cause that is like one of my favorite things I've seen in a very long time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty brilliant because they totally subvert your expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
So that movie is Deadpool 2. It's still in theaters now. Catch it while you can. So the next movie, our final review for this episode, is going to be Solo, a Star Wars story. This is the newest installment of the Star Wars series. It takes place before the first Star Wars movie, so it's sort of a prequel. Reading the plot summary, it says, during an adventure into the criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters Lando Calrissian years before joining the rebellion. It was directed by Ron Howard and stars Alden Ehrenreich, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, a few other people. So, Derek, what are your initial thoughts on Solo, a Star Wars story?
Well, I want to say this movie has a lot of baggage, and I think that it may get judged unfairly by some people, not necessarily you guys, but just in general.
As Star Wars movies are, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah,
Like,
so I mean, besides...
Fandom is obsessive nowadays. I mean, The Last Jedi, one of the most divisive movies of all time, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, with the director shakeup, I think like people had weird expectations like going into it. Like I don't know if clearly from the box office results, people weren't very excited about it. And I think I was one of those people. I really wasn't excited for it, but I knew I wanted to see it sooner rather than later so I could judge for myself. And I think even probably 20 minutes to a half hour into the movie, I was still pretty harshly judging it, dreaming of what could have been happening had the other directors stayed on board. Probably around the end of the first act, the movie kind of swept me off my feet when it got into the first big action set piece, which I thought was just exhilarating and really exciting. So my review of the movie is that I think it's more along the lines of like a Fast and Furious type movie than a Star Wars movie. And I think that's kind of cool about it. Like it's just a string of heists in the Star Wars universe starring Han Solo, young Han Solo. And they work in some of his backstory. It's not like the most interesting thing, but for a summer action blockbuster, I think it nails all the checkpoints that they needed to nail. I think it looks really cool. I think the directing is not bad. I can't think of anything that's sticking out like a sore thumb in this movie. I thought it actually worked pretty well. And I actually thought the action set pieces of this movie were highlights. They're all really great. And overall, I just really liked the movie.
Cool. I'm glad you liked it. Brandon, what say you?
I did not like this movie really at all, in a different way. I didn't really hate the movie though. Like I maybe had more big problems with the previous Star Wars films than I did this film, though I liked this one less. And I don't know how that really works out. But to talk about some things you said, like I do agree the like cinematography and the set design and CGI, I was all pretty impressed with. I actually did look it up, and the cinematographer, worked with Denis Villeneuve on Arrival and did A Most Violent Year in Selma. Like, he's actually pretty great, which is why this movie looks pretty consistent and beautiful throughout. I did love the whole look of the film a lot. And even with the directing, Ron Howard, it is a pretty clean and well-paced film throughout. Like, it hits all the beats when it needs to. I wasn't necessarily like wanting to leave the movie, but at the same time, I thought it failed pretty miserably on the action and the set pieces. In the first 20 minutes, like you said, were pretty rough. That was definitely some of the worst parts, was the movie getting going. But even when it did get to like the train sequence and some of the bigger moments towards the middle and later part of the movie, I was not that entertained by what was going on. I didn't think it was that clever, besides the fact that the train like tilted sideways. But everything that was like going on around it, and the like structure of the heists and the planning with everybody, even when they were freeing the droids and invading the mining colony, like I just thought none of it was clever enough for me to get into it. And I was pretty disappointed by a lot of the action.
Okay, well, I think I'm more in line with Brandon on this one. This is going to sound weird, but I liked the premise of the movie, and I hated the premise of the movie. Like, I liked that it was a smaller Star Wars tale. Like I liked that it was about a smuggler. I liked how it started, and you're on this planet that we haven't been to before, and it's the planet where they build all the ships, and they have this awesome shot of Han Solo like on the ground, and you see like a Star Destroyer above him like being built and put together, and it's like, oh wow, I mean, of course there's got to be a planet where they do that kind of stuff. And I just that whole concept of it being a tale just about the smuggler. It's a way of expanding the universe and showing parts of this franchise that we talked about and seen in small glimpses. But we're getting a story that's just about that, and that's pretty interesting to me. It had a lot of prequel problems. It had so many just like fan service or like just problems with, this is how this character met, and this is why this happens, and it's just baffling how bad it is. Where basically an imperial soldier gives Han Solo his name. I mean, he's like, "What's your name?" "My name's Han. I don't have a last name because I don't have a family." "Oh, well." And then he like looks into the camera and into our souls and says, "Well, I'm going to call you Han Solo." It's like, what? Just that kind of stuff is just so bad. Like, just really bad. And there were a bunch of moments like that. They're just prequel like garbage moments that we don't need and don't like. But then, I mean, Brandon, I'm pretty much with you too, though. Like, as the movie goes along, like it turns into a heist movie, but I feel like it kind of fails as a heist movie. I was never really that interested in how they were stealing it. Like, I just watched The Sting a few weeks ago. Like I mentioned, I watched a bunch of movies from the 70s, and that movie is so great because it basically like sets up the whole mission. It almost tells you exactly what the characters are doing and what they're trying to get out of it and like how they're going to do it. Like they lay out the whole plan right in front of you pretty explicitly. But then when they're actually going through the motions and doing the plan, you buy into it and you start second guessing actually what they're doing and if it's going to work out and if someone's going to be betrayed and if they're going to get away with it. And I didn't feel that at all with this movie. I just kind of, okay, they're stealing this thing. Okay, well that's happening.
And what was their plan to steal the mining ore and the mining colony? Their plan was to throw it on a cart and roll it out to the ship.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
great plan.
Great plan.
It worked.
I mean, but not because of their plan. And it also worked because of like they were just invincible to like bullets in like the typical James Bond action-y way. They literally just kind of walked out and people missed them for 10 minutes straight until they got it to the ship.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was one of my least favorite Star Wars movies. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Man. It's like, what if I said it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies?
I think we should move into spoilers with all three of our first takes now.
That's fine. I mean, I don't know if I really have many spoilery things to talk about, but okay. I will say, like, maybe it's my relationship with Star Wars. Like, for me, everything I feel like I kind of knew what was going to happen in this movie. I figured it would be a very by the books, very safe, very cheesy, very like not creative take. Like, as soon as I saw that Ron Howard was directing it, it was like, okay, so we're going to get like that kind of a movie. We're not getting, like, part of me thinks that like with Lord and Miller, we would have gotten a very un-Star Wars-like Star Wars movie. I think that they would have taken, like, I think that's probably why they got fired, is because it didn't feel like the Star Wars movie that Lucasfilm and Disney were imagining it being. And so they replaced him with someone that could deliver that. And right. So going in, I kind of expected that. I was like, well, that's what we're going to get. It's not going to be anything special. It's not going to be creative. And it's, they're getting Ron Howard because he's going to deliver them what they expect him to. And so for me, I don't know. I wasn't really, I don't know. Like for me, it was a surprise when, I mean, God, it's hard to follow now that you guys were like talking about how much you hated the action scenes. Because specifically for me, I loved the action scenes.
Well, I liked the train one.
Really good.
I thought the train one was really good. I'll admit, I got pretty into when they were stealing the train, and I mean, it wasn't nearly as good as I can't remember if you mentioned Fast Five, but like Fast Five also has a train, heist scene in it, which is much better. But like I actually did really like the train one. But then, like, immediately after, like, I didn't like how that scene ended, and that kind of, like, took away a lot of the action for me, because it ended up not mattering at all. You know what I mean? Like, they, like, dropped the cargo, and nothing, they just, like, oh, man, well, that sucked. We went through all that, and nothing matters. That was kind of what bothered me about that scene.
Yeah, but that's the same thing for every Fast and the Furious movie? For every set piece in a Fast and the Furious movie, almost none of them actually matter in the end.
Until
like, they
the climax.
Well, yeah, but even then, like, very rarely is there a price to be paid in a Fast and Furious movie. And yet they kind of get a pass because they're supposed to be cheesy and dumb and silly and just big action spectacles. And for me, like, that's exactly what this was. It was a big, dumb, cheesy action spectacle. And I thought that they delivered on all those things. I don't think there has to be big stakes in that. Like, I think that it's okay for I mean, it's not... Obviously, they're going to suffer from not having as good of a movie as if it did have big stakes. But I'm just saying, like, that's why this was such a fun, easy watch for me, was you didn't get that invested in everything, and it was kind of like I don't know. This all just makes it sound like a terrible movie.
See, I kind of like agree with you that it was like the Fast and Furious movies. The thing is that unlike you guys, I don't really like the Fast and the Furious movies. And
I'm getting offended you comparing them to the Fast and Furious movies. I'm like, what do you mean the Fast and Furious movies don't have stake? There's so much stakes in those movies. People die. People lose their lives, and
2 people have died, and one they had to kill off because he actually died in real life. Like,
well, you think Letty dies for a while, and
she doesn't.
Well, you don't know that in the 5th movie.
She just forgot that she was alive or something. I don't even remember.
Well, I mean, it's not just about life and death, though. Too, it's also about but it's also about The Rock chasing you because you have you stole this money, and then the gangsters are also trying to get the other thing, and I mean. You're right.
That's why I mean that life and death stuff. Like, that's why that train scene for me didn't feel like it was a complete waste, because it did come down to a life and death thing. But the whole reason why it kind of feels like a letdown was because it felt like that life and death thing didn't matter, right?
Well, I mean,
and I do think that's a part of the movie that they fucked up on for sure.
Yeah, the movie tells you that life and death doesn't matter in that scene because Woody Harrelson's wife dies and he doesn't even care at all. Like, he just kind of he gets upset for a minute and then he punches.
Damn it!
Yeah, he punches Han because he's like, man, your actions made us lose that money and my wife's dead. But I'll work with you again. Let's go. It's like the movie just kind of brushes it off and keeps going. I mean,
I was also a little weirded out by the fact that she killed herself anyways. I mean, I guess it was to sacrifice herself for the husband. They didn't really make that clear, but she killed herself because if they had failed, then someone else would have killed her, which doesn't really make sense. It's like, you're dead either way. Why would you kill yourself ahead of time for no reason?
I think that situation, I feel like, is fairly common in action movies. And I think for me, I just was kind of numb to it. Like, it didn't even, it sucks that they did that. And it makes for a lame, conclusion to that story. But
I just needed her to be not bluntly, but you to more feel like, I'm doing this for you, Woody. This is so you can return the goods and live a life and be free.
Yeah.
Because
one line.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
I could switch this a little bit and tell you some more stuff I did like about it. I liked the very ending a lot. The small climax of the movie. I liked the reveal with the Resistance, and I thought they looked great. And it's pretty cool, like seeing the first wave of that and the way they're represented in the film and the way that they're going to get enough money to do all of their resisting. I thought that was really cool. I also liked the little. I liked the twists in the yacht that happened in the small room. That was kind of old school. That was kind of old school heist movie, and I was pretty on board for everything that was going down there. The ending fight scene, the location out on the sand. I thought they nailed all of that, and it got me excited right before it ended. But it was too little, too late for me.
Yeah, I mean, what were you going to say something, Nick? Sorry.
No, I don't have too much to say. I was going to say, like, I do think it's interesting that this is the 10th Star Wars movie, and say what you will about the other Disney ones that have come out so far, but it is interesting now that there's been a kind of a variety in them. The first one was a little, I thought the first one was great, but it was The Force Awakens was a little too similar to A New Hope, and then The Last Jedi was a little too far out of Star Wars for some people, while Rogue One was a war movie, and like Solo it's doing its thing. To me, Solo is more close to the prequels than anything else, but like, I don't know, for the first time, like, there's 10 of them, and people are starting to, like, all over Twitter and stuff, everyone's, like, putting their own rankings, and it just kind of, like, humorous to me, like, seeing how everyone's rankings are different and stuff. I mean, I know
everyone puts Solo as the worst.
I mean, I know I'm a little weird because I love The Last Jedi. I thought Rogue One was okay, and like, out of the prequels, I think The Phantom Menace is the best one by, like, a margin. Like, I think I would give The Phantom Menace 3 stars, and the Clone Wars 2. No, I would give The Phantom Menace 3 stars, Revenge of the Sith 2 stars, and the Clone Wars 1 star. And I think I gave Solo 2.5 stars. So by that standard, I have The Phantom Menace over Solo, but Solo above the other 2 prequel movies. So
yeah,
Nick, I agree with you on Phantom Menace. Like, I don't.
Nice.
I think a lot of people are coming around to Phantom Menace being the better of the 1, 2, and 3.
I just think The Phantom Menace works because it's, like, purely a popcorn movie. Like, it's just easy and fun and silly. It's got ideas. Pod race scene is awesome.
It's got ideas that the others don't.
It's got some cool lightsaber fights too, and it just, it's not good, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of where I'm at with it. But
I just want to add in that Solo, going back to Solo for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Just one last little push to save this review of it. I think the Kessel Run scene I absolutely loved too.
Ooh, let's talk about that. Yeah,
I thought, like, I think what, like, the benefit, like, the good side of having Ron Howard is he is a veteran, and he of war, of directing, and he knows how to pace action scenes really well. And I regardless of how dumb they are, I think he knows how to film them and edit them so that they're exciting and intense. And specifically that Kessel Run scene, I feel like that, like, there's a lot of these kinds of movies, a lot of, like, action movies where they're trying to steal stuff, whether it be heists or just stealing, train robberies or whatever. I think a lot of those action scenes follow strict formulas. So you could probably find them in tons and tons of movies and break them down how they all work out the same way. And there's a thing that happens where someone needs to do something to, like, it kind of builds to this climax, like specifically in this movie. I'm thinking of, they're doing their Kessel Run, and they get to that. There's like this crazy space octopus that's like getting sucked into a black hole or something. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
It's so chaotic.
It's not a black hole. I forget what they call it, but it's like gravity suck or something.
Something crazy's happening. Visually, it's really amazing too. Like the imagery in that scene is really fantastic. Like the image of this planet-sized octopus, like getting sucked into a hole while the spaceship's just barely trying to eke its way out is just really cool. Out of context of a Star Wars movie, I think it's really cool. In context of this movie, that scene right there, there's Woody Harrelson's like trying to get that like a vial of that stuff to put in the engine to like give him enough spark to get out of there. I feel like I've seen that concept done in like 50 movies, and rarely, like, for some reason, like I had the conscious thought while I was watching this scene that like this is how you do this right. Like for me, it felt like they like, I don't know, like it was all believable in the context of this movie, and I thought that the pacing was just perfect. That like, I don't know, like I was actually like getting really invested and really excited, and like, I don't know, for me, it just, that whole scene worked so well, and I've seen it done wrong so many times. Like that whole, you got to get the boost in the engine core so we can, go, or even in like a car engine or, whatever it is. I think Star Wars has even done it like 10 times, and I feel like this is the only time they got it right.
That scene definitely happens in Empire Strikes Back, where they're like, Han's like, or someone's in the bunker trying to like get hyperspace working, and then R2-D2 plugs himself in and gets it going, and they fly off. That type of thing.
I think I agree with a lot of your points, and like I think the graphics looked amazing. The CGI was good. The Ron Howard like paced it really well. The Star Destroyer inside the like tornado looked awesome, and even the giant beast was a cool concept. I even liked the like commentary of them trying to get Woody Harrelson to like hurry up and inject the fluid in. Like I thought that was like funny and clever, and like the cutting back and forth worked really well. But when I think back on that scene, it's insanity in a completely absurd way. And like the more I think about that scene, the less it makes sense to me, and the more kind of I'm upset about like how much they had going on. And I still don't even get what was actually closing in on them at all. Let alone the other two things that are even more confusing. Not the gravity thing, the like the ice, I don't know, the cave, whatever, the like final thing they had to get out of. I still don't know what that was. Let alone the other two things that are probably even more ridiculous to try to think about.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember I guess I don't remember enough of the actual
It was like a barrier of
icy needle,
something,
icy crystals.
I feel I remember watching it and it making sense, but I don't like. There was so much going on, I couldn't tell you what that was.
Yeah, but even so, that's like the least of their worries. Like they also didn't explain the gravity suck or the creature, but for some reason that thing, whatever closed in on them, had the least explanation and made the least sense.
It was like when they were going through the alleyway in the beginning of the movie, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Anyway, so real quick. So Solo was the most expensive Star Wars movie ever made, mostly because when they fired Lord and Miller and hired Ron Howard went and did like 70% of the reshoots. Like he just basically reshot almost the entire movie, and that made it the most expensive Star Wars movie ever. And it pretty much like bombed at the office. And I mean, it's kind of funny when a movie makes $110 million, it's a bomb, but it was expected to make a lot more. They're hoping it would make a lot more, and it costs so much. It's like, when a movie costs like $250 million and it's not even going to come near that, it's a problem. So, I mean, why do you guys think it failed? Why do you think people weren't into it?
I think there's a really clear one that's pretty obvious, is that they only spent 3.5 months advertising for it, and nobody was excited about it, and the build up to this movie was way too short, and they should have...
The advertising was terrible.
The advertising was terrible, and they should have spaced it out way more. I mean, this is different than a Marvel movie. This isn't like a fun superhero. This is a sci-fi movie. People don't like sci-fi movies. Yeah, it's Star Wars, but it's a whole different concept, and you can't release these movies this quickly consecutively.
I get what you mean. Like people like sci-fi movies, but you have to sell them on it first, right? They're not. It's not a built-in cash grab.
Yeah. Well, what I said during the summer movie wager episode that we did was that this movie was going to have to sell people on the idea of Alden Ehrenreich being Han Solo, and I think just in the marketing and then in the buzz afterward, I don't think people really were sold on him being Han Solo, or at least caring enough to be like, oh, well, I want to see Han Solo's backstory. I think that people just weren't that into, like, I've definitely had conversations with multiple people who were like, you know what, I like Han Solo's story as it is. I don't think I really need a backstory for him. I think that might be part of it.
There was one unique perspective I heard about recently that I hadn't heard anyone else talk about, and it was Dan Murrell on Screen Junkies News. He brought up the fact that it was a massive sporting week in the world and in the U.S. You had the Euro Cup finals between Manchester and Madrid, which is like the second biggest soccer event besides the World Cup in the world, and that happened Saturday. That is.
And it's also Memorial Day weekend where people are going to be camping and doing things outside and whatever.
Yeah, that's huge. And also, like, the NBA finals were on, and also the French
finals
Open.
Haven't started yet. The finals start tomorrow, but the playoffs were.
Yeah, the playoffs were happening. 2 of them or something. And that's a lot for all of Europe, seeing something that it's like the Super Bowl for half of the world. Like, no one's going out that day. No one went out Saturday in that section, in everywhere but America. So I think that was a big pain for the worldwide release.
And I think even with this movie, back to like their advertising of it, I think they kind of missed. I don't even think they successfully sold this movie to the diehard Star Wars fans. Like, I don't think that guaranteed money was there on this film. I don't know if it's because of The Last Jedi or if it's because of the marketing for this movie, but I don't know. I feel like that group of customers for this film were completely missed somehow.
Yeah. Okay, so do you guys have any final thoughts or anything?
I'd still recommend everyone go see this movie. I really liked it a lot. Best Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Do you really think it was the best Star Wars movie, though?
I said that it was the funnest time I've had watching Star Wars.
I thought you really liked The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
This movie gave me a lot of
respect
respect for The Force Awakens.
I honestly do not think it's nearly as fun as this movie. Like, I just had such a blast watching this one. I do think it's a better movie for sure. You could talk for a really long time about how much better it is. But that doesn't change the fact that I had so much more fun watching this crazy action movie, Fast and Furious in space.
And I think it's also fair to say that this movie's not a train wreck. You know, I mean, it's like Justice League, they fired, what's his name? Zack Snyder didn't get fired, but he stepped down, and they brought in Joss Whedon, and that felt like an incomplete movie. That didn't feel like a whole movie was there. That was like a pilot of a TV show, and Solo does feel like a full movie.
Totally agree. Yeah, like I said, I didn't hate too many things in this movie. I just didn't care for most of it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So with that, I think we're going to real quick preview some movies that are coming out in June. So what's coming out in June? Derek, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, the first big one, I think a lot of us probably have them on our summer movie wagers, is Ocean's 8. Comes out June 8th. And obviously it's in the Oceans franchise, but it's the all-female take on it, and I think it actually looks interesting. I'm definitely going to go check it out.
And this is in the bottom half of our top 10 expectations for the summer movie wager. So, I mean, on a quality level and a money level, like, what's going to be bigger, Ocean's 8 or Solo? Which is going to make more money at this point? Is Ocean's 8 going to make more money? Like, is it going to exceed expectations and get ahead of Solo? Is it going to be a better heist movie than Solo? Who knows?
God, Solo's going to fuck up my summer movie wager so hard.
Yeah, mine too. So another movie we're really looking forward to is Won't You Be My Neighbor? This also comes out June 8th. This is the
documentary? I don't know what word you're looking for.
This is the Mr. Rogers documentary. I forgot the word Mr. Rogers. This is the Mr. Rogers documentary. I'm actually just got tickets to go see this next Thursday because it comes out in New York. And I'm super excited to go see this movie. The trailer looks amazing. I've heard really good buzz from it opening up in South by Southwest and some other festivals. People are loving this a lot.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that too. A movie that I'm pretty interested in. I have no idea if it's going to be good or not, but Tag. I feel like on the heels of Game Night, which was exceeded expectations, Tag could be just as good. Just the cast is really solid. It's got John Hamm, Jake Johnson, and Ed Helms, Hannibal Buress, Isla Fisher, Jeremy Renner, Rashida Jones. It's a really solid cast, and if it's anywhere near quality Game Night, it's going to be a really, really fun time at the movies. Just basically the most epic game of tag of all time. So we'll see. That comes out June 15th.
Also on June 15th, wow, they're going up against The Incredibles 2. That's surprising. Well, I guess not. They're completely different demographics. Anyways, June 15th, The Incredibles 2 finally comes out from Brad Bird. God, when was the last one released? I feel like it's been almost 10 years. Came out like
2004, now. I think. More than 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, so I think that this could be... I mean, this movie, I think it's going to do kind of middle ground Pixar numbers in the high hundreds, but it's always hard to tell with Pixar. Like, some of these movies just take off, and like freaking Finding Dory is like the biggest animated movie of all time, just like out of nowhere. And so, who knows with Incredibles 2, but we're all really excited for it. Incredibles 1 is one of Pixar's best films, one of Brad Bird's best films, one of the best superhero films. Yeah. So it's really exciting that they're doing a sequel to that. And I will say with sequels is kind of cool is like, well, at least with this animated sequels, it's not like a reunion movie because with the animation, like no one has to age or anything.
Right, this movie takes place immediately after the first one ends. So, I mean, it's an interesting idea because, like you said, first one came out more than 10 years ago, but it's starting immediately afterward. So, it's an interesting choice. I'm really excited about this movie. Curious. Another movie I'm really excited about that I don't know if I should be excited about, but I am, is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It comes out June 22nd. I mean, there's not a lot to say about Jurassic World except you're either into the dinosaurs and the silliness or you're not. I mean, I love how the two trailers that have come out, the first one is like, okay, the island's going to erupt. It's a volcano. We got to go and save the dinosaurs for some reason. And then the second trailer comes out and they're like, yeah, there's a volcano, but it's really more about genetically modifying the dinosaurs and capturing them so we can make an army of dinosaurs to destroy other people. And there's dinosaurs going into houses, and Blue is running around. And he's the friend of Chris Pratt. It's gonna be awesome. And so I just feel like they're embracing the silliness, and I'm into that. So I'm choosing to be excited about it.
I'm honestly, I'm just really excited to see what happens. Like, I don't even know. I don't have any expectations. I probably even have like slightly negative expectations of the movie, but I'm just really curious to see what happens. Like, this movie looks so ridiculous. I'm going to go just to see what happens.
Well, one thing that's interesting though is that the director, I mean, you could say he's a better director than the guy who did the first Jurassic World movie. I mean, what was the guy's name?
I mean, I will say he's a better director.
Colin Trevorrow.
So Colin Trevorrow did the first one.
These are both really indie directors.
Right. I mean, they take these indie directors and give them a full franchise. And this guy's J.A. Bayoya, and he did A Monster Calls and The Impossible. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen either of those movies, but they're pretty serious movies. I mean, The Impossible is the one with Naomi Watts with the tidal wave, and
The Impossible shockingly worked for a low budget movie about a tsunami. Like, I don't know how they pulled that off. And A Monster Calls is crazy creative. Like, that movie's unlike anything else. It's pretty interesting that this guy got to do a Jurassic World film.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping it's just even though it's ridiculous, I'm hoping it's a quality movie and people just go see it a bunch and it overtops the Avengers and I win the summer movie wager. It could happen. Probably not.
So the last movie we're all really excited to see is Sicario, Day of the Soldado. This movie comes out at the end of the month, June 29th. Actually, it may or may not be in our next review. That is pretty late in the month for June. We'll see, though.
Yeah.
But the one exciting thing about this movie, even though they're switching directors and cinematographers, Roger Deakins will not be there, and Denis Villeneuve will not be directing it. It still has Tyler Sheridan, who is the writer of the film. He did the first Sicario, which was his first script, and so he's definitely like continuing on his storyline he wants to tell. He also went on to write Hell or High Water, which was a great film, and also last year's Wind River, which was another really great film. Kind of is getting a knack for writing these like kind of mid-level indie scripts that end up being amazing. And this one has another no-name director to it, but so did Hell or High Water and Wind River. So maybe with the strong script, they can pull off a really solid action movie again, or suspense action movie.
Right. I mean, I'm interested in it, definitely, but I'm also I'm cautiously interested because I'm like, I feel like the first one ended on such a solid note. It was like, and even just them announcing there's going to be a sequel, I was like, do they need to have a sequel? And I mean, yeah. I'm curious. So
it's just this writer is flawlessly 3 for 3 though. So it's I'm really curious if he can just keep going with it.
Right. Totally. I mean, I'm interested too. So with that, I think we should wrap it up. Derek, I just realized, like, I don't know. I don't know. Are you gonna be on the next episode with us? Like, I can't remember when.
We'll see. I mean, I definitely will have a baby next time we record.
Right. When is Christina due exactly? I mean, we don't know exactly, but like, when does she due?
The 21st, so the day before Jurassic World comes out.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, we're gonna buy tickets for Incredibles 2 really soon. I'm not sure that we'll be able to go to the movie, but
right. Yeah,
we'll see. We're hoping that's our last movie we get to go see in theaters together.
From what
Forever.
From what I understand, like, you know, once you have a baby, you know, it's all consuming for those first few weeks at least. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna be crazy for those first few weeks. So I mean, if you're not here, if you're not able to record, you know, no worries, no hard feelings. So
Right. All right.
I'm just excited for you guys to have a baby.
Yeah.
And cool. So with that, Brandon, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Letterbox at Beb and at Instagram, Brandon_Bulby.
Derek, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter, Mixer, and Letterbox at Chicken Tech. Go see Solo.
Is that like your hashtag, or is that all part of your chicken tag name?
God, I just want people to see it and give it a chance. All right.
I mean, it's a Star Wars movie. I think people are giving it.
So.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Nick Moffat. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Mothman23. So anyway, that's our May episode, and thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.